Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at a majority of the Google Pixels that ever came out, starting from the Pixel 3, Pixel 4, Pixel 5, Pixel 6, and all the way up to the Pixel 7. And it's actually very interesting to see how all of these Google Pixel phones from the 2018 models and onwards have kind of shifted and have kind of changed. If you look at the Pixel 3 all the way at the end and you look at the Pixel 7, they don't really look that similar, to be honest. But also, what's crazy is only if you look at the Pixel 5 to the Pixel 7, I don't really think there's a lot of there's obviously some similarities, but the Pixel 6 kind of has re-evolutionized the whole entire lineup. And going forward, I think we have an idea of what's basically going to be happening. But starting from the Pixel 3, what was very, very interesting at this time in 2018 was how Google kind of switched away from their normal design, I would say, at least with the Pixel 3 XL. The Pixel 3 wasn't really talked about at a crazy level. I think mostly the 3 XL was where a lot of people were kind of hating on that phone. But this device, I would say, in 2022, still has somewhat of some legs to kind of stand on. I'm not too sure what version of Android this thing ended off with. I want to say it was Android 12. So for this thing ending off with Android 12, I mean, that's not that old of a version of Android. I mean, that's pretty much the last one. You can see Android 12 here. So that is the one thing where you're going to be shocked about Android, specifically with the Pixel lineup. Even though this phone came out in 2018 and probably nobody or not that many people are still using this phone still is getting Android version updates that a lot of other phones that came out way before this, I would even say phones like the Galaxy S10 and maybe some other phones like that, this phone ended up lasting longer than those devices, even though those devices were more popular. So that is one thing I love about Google Pixel. They last for a very long amount of time, and even this thing is probably still going to be getting security updates. So even though this thing wasn't the most popular phone of the time, it's still up to date, kind of, which is actually very cool. It's only one version of Android behind. Then that brings us to the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 4 XL. So back when Google in 2018, or 2019 actually, when they made this phone, it was actually a very interesting phone because for one, if you look between the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 4, you can kind of see where the designs kind of changed. So they took out the bottom bezel, which was very interesting. They still maintained that top bezel, but then they kind of went ahead and gave us, and this is the big thing, a 90 hertz display on the Pixel 4. So that was one thing, in my opinion, where I was super happy about. Also, some versions of the phone, I think the Pixel 4 XL got a glass back, and this one has this like textured back, which still feels very, very premium. And this was also the first time where we had a dual camera setup on the Pixel 4 as well. So what was the problem here? What did Google do wrong? Why didn't this phone maybe do the numbers that they should have, or whatever the case was? Well, this was actually a very interesting time from Google because when they made the Pixel 4, we weren't really too sure where Google was going to go after this because what the Pixels were usually known for, especially with the flop of the 3 XL, was that they were known for their cameras and they were kind of known for their competitive price tags, at least coming from the Nexus lineup. The Pixel lineup made it a little bit more of a flagship, which was understandable, but with this phone, it just didn't sell too well because of the competition, in my opinion. The iPhone 11 Pro came out during this time, the Galaxy S10 came out earlier that year, which was beautiful, so there was no reason, and it came out at the end of the year too, so there was really no reason to pick up a phone like this considering the competition. But also, this was also one of the first phones to bring, 2019 was great because 90 hertz was like all over the place. And especially at that time, we had the OnePlus 7 Pro. So that phone kind of took over this market share. But there was another big thing. Because of the lack of 4K at 60 on the back, the lack of like 4K at 60 on the front, as well as the lack of an ultra-wide camera and Google kind of bad-mouthing ultra-wide cameras, that made a lot of people upset. And the camera quality on this phone wasn't as great as people expected. So this camera in this phone started kind of flopping in that area, which kind of made me upset. But then the Pixel 4a came out and it kind of brushed a lot of those things out of the way because it kind of showcased that Google wasn't trying to be like the flagship of flagships. And that's when the Pixel 5 came out at somewhat of a cheaper price tag. And that's what started kind of shaping things up. So with the Pixel 5, what ended up happening was Google kind of redid the whole entire design, which was beautiful. When you look at this phone, like I mentioned, there's a little bit of a Pixel 7 in this, you can kind of see, but regardless, this is a unique design, at least compared to the Pixels, which was beautiful. This display was actually fairly decent. It's a 90 hertz panel still, which looks very good in my opinion. And there's not too much to hate on. You still have USB-C, but the big thing was that they gave us an ultra-wide camera, which was needed. Now, another big thing, this phone wasn't trying to compete with the $1,000 phones of that time, and this is where the Pixel 7 starts kind of coming into play. This phone wasn't trying to compete with the $1,000 phones. It was like a $600 something phone at the time when it first came out, and that is where this phone kind of stood its time. That is why this phone still stands up, I think, decently in this day and age, because it's not trying to be like a flagship. It's just trying to be a good mid-tier phone that you can buy. Now, the one thing I didn't like about this phone too much was the chipset inside, but honestly, it held up very well, and even all the speed comparisons I've done after, it's actually done a pretty decent job. But then this takes us to the Google Pixel 6. Now, this phone I think is the biggest change in the whole entire lineup. So with the Pixel 6, you are getting such a different type of phone from all the other ones, as you guys can probably tell. This thing is more rectangular. This thing looks more like a Note, and this thing brought the premiumness that we should have gotten. I think that Google was trying to do with the Pixel 4. They gave us a very premium phone on the Google Pixel 6, which was beautiful. So on the Pixel 6, you're getting, I think, about the same size as the Pixel 7, but it's a little bit bigger on the Pixel 6. You're getting the hole punch display, very similar to the Pixel 5 kind of, but now it's centered. But you're also getting, this is the big thing, glass on the back. That was something I was very happy about. And when I saw the rumors of the Pixel 6, I was kind of wondering if they were going to do plastic on the back and it looked like glass, but they gave us a glass back. And this phone, when I hold this phone and the heft to it, it feels very similar to like some of my Galaxy Notes that I've had, like my Galaxy Note 9. It feels very similar. And that was like a very expensive phone when that phone first came out. Google didn't go and increase the price tag like crazy on this phone. They still maintained it at a cheap price tag. And that was another thing that I really loved Google about. They didn't try giving us like another like Pixel 4 or 4 XL. They just gave us a really good mid-tier phone. But also the other big thing was that new Tensor chipset inside. The performance of this phone, although it wasn't as great as first, I would say the Pixel 5 was kind of beating it in most areas. It got better throughout time, and now this phone sits at a very decent spot, and I'm really happy about it. So Google ended up giving us a way better build quality, way better design, I would say, kind of, as well as that new chipset inside, which really changed things up from Google. Now this kind of leads us to the Google Pixel 7, the current generation of phone from Google, and I do think this is the perfect Google Pixel. I think this fixes pretty much every issue that all the other Google Pixels had, but the issue we have with the Pixel 7 I think is battery life and kind of performance, which should be addressed and fixed very soon. But regardless, this phone slimmed down the bezels of the Pixel 7. I think this one looks much better than the Pixel 6 for sure. You're also getting and maintaining that 90 Hz panel, which is nice, but you're still maintaining USB-C. You still have tremendous build quality. Like this build quality still feels very good. But you're also getting a little bit of a newer design on the back, which is very nice. You're still maintaining wireless charging, you still have reverse wireless charging, and you still have a ton of other capability for sure. And this phone's just getting started. It has that next generation Tensor chipset as well. So that's another really big thing that I do like about this phone, is that it's just building on top of what we had before. Now, when we look at the Pixel 3 and we look at the Pixel 7, are there massive differences? I don't know. I mean, there's definitely massive differences, but Android is Android, and there's stock Android between both. If you can look behind the hardware, I guess they're kind of the same. But it's very weird to me that, at least with iPhones, you can kind of see like, oh, like, well, the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 10, there's some overlap there, or the iPhone 10 to the iPhone, 14 that we have now, there's a lot of overlap. But between these, up until the Pixel 6, it was like a new thing every generation, which was very interesting. So now we're sitting at the Pixel 7, and I think Google has found their footing. I think they know exactly what they're going to do now, and I think they're going to maintain this design. They're probably going to slim down the bezels of the next generation. They're going to improve the cameras and all these other things. But I do think if it wasn't for the kind of the flopping of the Pixel 4, Google wouldn't have done and focused on their, mid-tier generation. They would have then probably focused on more flagships and then probably gone that route. But I'm glad we have like a $599 Pixel 7, which is a very good phone to pick up because it's not cheap, but it's not overly expensive, and it is a very good value phone in my opinion. So from that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.